1 life, no natural health regen, and Herobrine's back and is no longer playing around. My 3 goals: train up by killing all the Minecraft bosses, get a full diamond beacon, and kill Herobrine before he kills me. Real quick, consider following me on Twitch so we can hang out every week, and subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my videos. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. We pick up right where we left off. Herobrine actually spawned in the Wither and started running towards all of my builds, probably trying to lead the Wither that way. Luckily, once the Wither exploded, I got a shot on him and lured him into the forest. The Wither quickly caught up to me and got a lot of good shots on me, killing everything in its path. I was getting pretty close to death, so I took to the skies in an attempt to make the battle a little bit more fair. Unfortunately, I only had around 12 rockets left, so I found a nice place to land on top of the treetops because now it was also getting dark, which meant a lot of hostile mobs were about to spawn all around me. I got a few more shots on the Wither until it got too close for comfort, so I flew back into the sky as the Wither closely chased behind me. I didn't realize how close the Wither actually got to me until I watched this back. If you're ever in a similar predicament, probably the best thing to do is to dig into the side of a mountain, but make sure that you choose a big mountain so that way you don't come out on the other side. This gives you the best chance for survival, but you do have to dig fast and keep turning around and making sure that you get hits on the Wither. After a little while of doing this, I was ready for the final charge. I ran in and landed the final blows on the Wither. With a sigh of relief, I pictured that nether star on top of a big hill of diamond blocks. With the night of day 400 almost being over, I flew back to my kingdom to see how much damage the Wither actually did. To my surprise, there wasn't too much destruction, but as I looked around, I started to panic when I couldn't find Coco. There was too many mobs around, so I decided to go sleep and quickly flew back over to see if Coco was still there. I was really relieved to see Coco just roaming around the flowers. We rode on over to my beacon to heal up, and I rode him over to the pond so he could get a drink, but I don't think he was too thirsty. I went through almost all of my golden apples during that fight, so I had to craft a bunch more. I also went through all the health potions I had on me, but luckily now I had a bunch stored in a shulker box. After crafting up another beacon, I spent the next few days adding the top piece to the rest of my wall, and with that it was just about all finished, except for my castle part. I spent day 406 finishing up my dog monument island and adding a bridge to it from my wall. On day 407, I decided to make the roads in my kingdom out of gravel, so I headed on over to my mob farm, grabbed some gunpowder and sugarcane from my sugarcane farm, crafted up some rockets, and set off in search of a gravelly mountain. I came across this ruined nether portal with only a single block of gold, and this little village that didn't really have anything worth looting. But as I left the village, mountains started to render in. After gathering up as much gravel as I could carry, I headed back home and decided to get my first mining session of this video out of the way. After spending over 400 days in this world, I had to go really far into my mine to get to an area that didn't have a lot of branch mines. And right off the bat, we were off to a great start with a 4 vein of diamonds. And when I made it back up to the surface, we had 9 more blocks to add to our collection. Actually, the extra diamonds added up to another block, make that 10 blocks to add to our collection. While that's exciting, things got a little creepy from there. As I was heading into my storage room, I noticed that the dragon head was missing his eyes. Then I realized that Alex was also missing her eyes. After throwing my extra torches into a chest, I had to go investigate. Hot Dog's eyes were white, and my little bird friend's eyes were white. Ruben, what did Herobrine do to you? I went upstairs and Steve was facing the door. He turned around. As I came up to his face, I saw his eyes were missing too. Next, I ran outside to check on Coco, and it started to seem like Herobrine's virus was impacting the whole game. While it was really concerning, I couldn't miss this opportunity. I grabbed some wheat from one of my farms, and well, check out how creepy this is. Yep, the chickens too. And I think Herobrine let my horses go as well. Want to know the creepiest mob I found so far? The villagers. Although the iron golem did look a little possessed. After recapturing my horses and hooking them back up to their cart, I spent day 415 and 16 giving my kingdom's landscape a makeover. But as it got dark on the night of 415, the hostile mobs started to spawn and they looked a lot creepier. Okay, the spiders did look pretty cool, but the skeletons started to look a little infested. It looked a little similar to what we saw happening at Herobrine's base. The zombies looked a little more creepy, but the endermen actually looked pretty cool. I'd say the 2 most terrifying creatures were the creepers and the baby zombies. I spent 2 days leveling out the area and spent 2 more days adding in these gravel roads. I spent the next 3 days planting all of this wheat in my kingdom and building this cool abandoned broken down shrine. If this was a different video game, doesn't this look like a place that you would find a special item? On day 422, as I looked around my field, I realized that not a lot of my kingdom was actually lit up. So I headed back to my creepy sheep horde and grabbed all of their wool plus all the wool from my wool farm, having Herobrine eyes makes killing phantoms so much easier. And by the night of day 423, I had lit up all the areas except for the places that I wanted to build. On day 424, I headed down into my ancient debris mine because we have ourselves some more patrons. And while I was mining away, I actually fell into lava. That was the first time that happened on this world. Normally lava will just fall slowly from the ceiling, giving me enough time to escape. So this was definitely scary. See, this is what I was talking about. Easy fix. A good tip for when you're mining ancient debris: to save some time, just dig around quartz. Unless of course you need it to level up. And it actually took a good amount of time to find this little guy. I don't know what it is with all my pets, but now Steve is also climbing on my brewing stands. We actually have a handful of people to add to the patron wall, so I grabbed all the blocks that we would need, made a few signs, and headed out to the wall just to find this pressure plate sitting in front of it. After a little bit of investigating, I found 3 TNT lined up under the patron wall. And this was another attempt for Herobrine to kill me. While I'm concerned about that, I'm more concerned with how Herobrine knew that I had more patrons to add to the wall. I think he's infecting my whole computer. Anyway, quick thanks to Nerdy Duck, Hunter, Godly Gamer, Dobu and Potato, and Hayden for all becoming patrons. The night of day 224, I headed to the end to fix up all of my gear. And when there's a bunch of Endermen together, they do look really scary with those new eyes. On the morning of day 225, I wanted to find a new fun way to dispose of all these extra ender pearls, so I grabbed some TNT and headed over to the nearby mountains to blow everything up just in case there was any more hidden TNT around my base. But as I got to the top of the mountain, I saw something that was very alarming. I flew down to get a closer look, and there was more trees missing their leaves. And the virus that we found in Herobrine's base was definitely spreading at an exponential rate. There were spots of infection all over this mountain, and when it touched the water, it turned to slime. The infection was getting worse, and I had no idea what to do. So I just decided to have some fun with some TNT. Definitely the best way to get rid of ender pearls. On the morning of day 227, I decided I wanted my own bee colony, along with a cool little place to house all of my bees, so that way I could have access to honey. Bees normally look so cute, but now that Herobrine got a hold of them, they look really scary. The way they lazily follow you, it's almost like they're hypnotized or something. It was a little hard to figure out how to get the bees into their nests at first, but I did eventually figure it out. It did take me a lot of trying. Also, imagine running into this creepy guy in the woods and him trying to sell you stuff. It took a lot of trial and error, as well as almost drowning some bees and accidentally burning bees with my campfire, before realizing that you actually just need to wait for the bees to get pollen all over them and then they'll return home. After gathering 6 bee nests, I spent day 427 to day 430 building this epic beehive. There was a nice little place to store all of the honey, a guarded entrance so bees don't escape, and since the bees had white eyes, I went for a Herobrine color scheme. This is probably my favorite build of the whole video. Wouldn't you love to just sit on that tree and watch all of my videos in one sitting? Although there is one thing that I still wanted to change. This floor is a little too crazy for me, and I thought it'd be pretty satisfying to watch me do this. With the determination of a bee, I zoomed through that project and my beehive was complete. On day 431, it was back down into the mine, and I was really unlucky this video. I really need to pay more attention when I go mining. After mining for a good amount of days, on day 437, I started heading back up to the surface, and while I was crafting my diamond blocks, I was not focused on what's happening around me, and Herobrine came up and broke the block I was standing on. Turns out he made a hole that went down into the ravine that we found in the first 100 days on this world. And instead of running away, he just waited and stared at me, and then I realized why. I was surrounded by hostile mobs. I fought my way to the waterfall and made it back up to where I was, but Herobrine was nowhere to be found. So I went back to crafting up my diamond blocks and had 11 more blocks to add to my collection. I didn't want my pickaxe to break, so I headed over to the Enderman farm to fix it up and then headed back into my mine. I spent the next 5 days mining as many diamonds that I could find, and with 10 more blocks, we were one step closer to having a full diamond beacon. As I was heading back to my base, I felt so accomplished, and I was also very relieved that I didn't die in that ravine. But on my way back, I came across this chicken, and when he turned around, I noticed that part of his wing was missing. I didn't want to get infected, so I threw an egg at it to see what would happen. For the most part, it acted pretty normal, but things did get weirder from there. Once I entered my little compound, I noticed my dogs were also infected, and parts of their little tails were missing. Hot Dog was infected too. And at first glance, Steve seemed okay, but then I noticed that part of his face was infected, and when he turned around, a huge part of his side was just missing. You could literally see inside of his ribcage. But luckily, Ruben was still okay for now. After unloading everything, I made some more rockets, smelted up some more of my gold, and went to go check on all my other animals. It turns out all of my cows were pretty badly infected. Things were getting worse by the minute, so I knew knew that I would have to kill Herobrine, but before I could face him, I knew that I would need some more training. I went to go buy an Ocean Explorer map so I could find and conquer another ocean monument, but luckily I found some extra maps in the chest. Before I could set off for another adventure, I knew that I could use a better enchanted trident. So on day 44, I spent almost all of my levels getting the perfect trident. On day 45, after collecting everything that I thought I'd need to conquer an ocean monument, I peacefully flew over my corrupted world. I didn't look at my map until I was really far away because I didn't want it to register the old ocean monument that I already conquered in 300 days. Unfortunately, I think the map is the same depending on what villager you buy it from. I thought I may have already looked at those maps or something, so I decided to head back to the same villager to test out my theory. I do love exploring a Minecraft world with an elytra. This time I was a lot farther away and I stopped at this little village to look at my map, and it was the same map. I didn't feel like trying to fly all the way back to my base to get some more emeralds and stuff, so I trapped this family in their house and made them trade with me. And I definitely changed my mind. The baby villagers are now the creepiest mob I've seen so far. After trading some resources with the locals, I finally was able to buy myself a new ocean monument map. Then I was back to exploring. Even the underwater mobs have Herobrine's eyes. Eventually, I made it to the ocean monument, and it was really interesting because I've never seen one spawn in an icy biome like this before. I tried parking my boat right above the ocean monument, but the guardians nearly killed me. So after healing up, I went back, quickly drank some milk and an invisibility potion, and dug my way into the first boss room. My trident was so OP. I killed each guardian with just 4 throws of my trident. And of course, you always have to grab that gold before you leave. When I came back up to the surface, these 2 guardians had stolen my boat. Luckily, I brought 2. And on the night of day 449, I had conquered the ocean monument, killed all the ender guardians, and started to head back home. But I soon came across this small island, and the zombie was looking a little weird. As he got closer, I realized that he was infected like the cows, and you could actually see right through him. Curious, I wanted to see if any other mobs were infected, so I went onto the island and saw that the skeleton's condition had gotten worse. They were more infected, and it looked like part of their skull was chipped off. The most noticeably infected mob was the creeper. I really wish that I could get a better look at them, but I did not want to get killed. So as the sun rose on day 450, I began traveling back to my base, and on the night of day 451, I made it home safely. On day 452, with my wood sources somewhat depleted, I spent the next 2 days chopping down some trees. Then on day 454, I was ready for my next build. I figured that the guards that would live in this giant tower could use a place to sleep, so I spent the next few days building these barracks. This was definitely a fun build to make. It had a cool entrance, a place for the guards to sit down and eat, some workplaces, a huge fireplace, and of course, some beds for them to sleep in. After that, knowing that I would need a lot more diamonds, I headed down into my mine and came up with a little more than 11 blocks of diamonds. On day 464, I was excited to see that it was not only raining, but it was also a thunderstorm. For anyone who doesn't know, the channeling enchantment makes lightning strike your targets upon the impact of your trident, and this is also the way to get charged creepers. I honestly spent most of this day just playing around with my trident, except when one charged creeper got a little too close and blew a giant hole in the ground. Pay no attention to under there. It was pretty cool to hit phantoms with bolts of lightning, but after the storm passed, I realized that my pickaxe was actually pretty close to breaking. So I headed back to my Enderman farm and was a little tempted to throw my trident into the void. Does anyone know what would happen if I did that? I didn't want to risk it, so I just fixed up my gear and headed back home. On day 465, I realized something else was low, the amount of carrots in my inventory. So I started heading on over to my iron farm to get some iron to trade for emeralds and carrots, when I realized that I could use ender pearls to get around my base a little faster, and I wouldn't be wasting resources on my health because my beacon regens my health. After getting some emeralds from these creepy guys, I realized that if you always have ender pearls on you, you'll never have to open a gate again. Okay, now tell me something. Would you buy food from this man? I was a little hesitant until his friend convinced me otherwise. I spent the rest of day 465 and 466 pearling around and buying golden carrots. And if you ever do this, especially on hardcore mode, pearl with caution, please. On day 467, I scoured the world, searching far and wide for just a few stacks of terracotta. Why do mesas always seem to be thousands of blocks away from spawn? On the night of 469, I returned home to a warm welcome. Quite literally. Seriously, this was really scary. I hate lava so much. I quickly ate a golden apple, broke the string, and dug my way to safety. On the morning of day 470, as I was riding Coco over to my mine, I noticed that Herobrine's infestation had spread. The mountain right outside the village was covered with the virus, and it seemed to make the lava cool as well. When I turned around, Coco was like, nope, he wanted nothing to do with worth it. After tying him up, I spent the next several days mining. Since I had to mine so much this video, I thought that it would be fun to play around with the replay mod and get a few different cool shots. Even after mining so many diamonds, it's still so exciting to me to find more. And as I was heading back up to the surface, this time I made sure to stand on top of the chest, just in case Herobrine tries any more tricks. On day 477, I came out of my mine to find that the virus had continued to spread. It seemed to be growing faster and faster. So many of the houses were infested, and it was even to a point that you could see inside of the houses. This was becoming a bigger and bigger concern. I didn't have a lot of days left, but I still had a lot of builds to do, and I needed to get the materials to respawn the dragon. So from day 478 to 81, I spent building this cool medieval house and adding some greenery around my kingdom, as well as this nice little storehouse for all my wheat. After that, I knew that I would need at least 1 or 2 more mining sessions to get enough diamonds to make a full diamond beacon, so I went to my enderman farm to fix up my gear, and while I was returning back home, Herobrine was standing at the portal with an end crystal in hand. He spawned in the dragon, and as he ran away, I just stood there in awe as I watched all the towers regenerate. I was not ready to fight the dragon, but I had no choice. So I got my weapons and health potions out and met the dragon in the air as I flew around destroying all of the end crystals. And then it was time for an epic aerial battle, and Herobrine even took the dragon's eyes. After getting the dragon's health almost down to 0, she took back up to the skies and was finished off with one final arrow. I let out a big sigh of relief. Herobrine's strategy of spawning in these creatures while I'm not prepared almost worked twice now. After that battle, I spent the next 5 days in my mine and had myself 10 more blocks to add to my collection. I was getting so close to a full diamond beacon, but that victory was short-lived. On the night of day 488, I came up out of my mine and the virus had ravaged through the entire village. I didn't know if it killed any of the villagers or how far spread the virus had become, but I did know that it was getting closer to my base. I ran quickly to bed so I could spend day 489 finding out the extent of the damage. This once lively village now laid in ruins. Houses were destroyed and villagers killed. It had even spread to some of my own builds. My villager breeder was corrupted, there was a huge hole in the wall, and no survivors. As I continue wandering around, I noticed my dog statue started to look very similar to my actual dogs. And if that wasn't bad enough, it had also spread to my kingdom. There was not much hope for any more building. Instead, it was time for revenge. I had killed all the Minecraft bosses in these 100 days, but before I could face Herobrine, I needed to finish my second goal and get a full diamond beacon. It was very satisfying mining these last few diamonds, knowing that I had enough to complete my goal. With a quick Google search, you would know that it takes 164 resource blocks to make a full beacon. And if you did the math here, you would see that I did not actually have enough. As I was heading over to the last diamond blocks I would need, I got into a little fight with this skeleton. As pretty as this beacon was, I really needed these diamonds. So I replaced the diamonds with iron blocks, reset the beacon, and got to work completing my second goal. With a great feeling of accomplishment and my new beacon shining a light into the darkness, I finally felt ready to take on Herobrine. But I figured I had an extra day before I had to start working on that, so I spent day 496 fishing, except I'm not too sure that I would want to eat these fish. It was a good way to unwind, but now I had to lay my trap. A lot of you said in the comments to make a bedrock trap, and I honestly didn't know if there's a way to break bedrock, but I'll link a tutorial in the description to show you how to do just that. And I would say definitely take some time to practice on another world before trying to do it in survival, especially on hardcore. By day 499, my trap was completely laid, but now I had to lure Herobrine over to it. This time, he had a ton of mobs guarding his base, so I quickly set off some TNT at his front entrance and flew around to avoid all of their attacks. And if this didn't provoke Herobrine, I don't know what would. I had finally made it to day 500. I stood on top of this mountain and waited for Herobrine. If I wanted to survive a full 500 days, my plan would have to go perfectly. But when I was waiting there, Herobrine snuck up behind me and hit me. It scared me so much and I started running for my life. While I was scared that he was chasing me, that's exactly what I wanted. I lured him back to the forest where it all started and jumped down into a hole that I had made. I started going the wrong way and almost fell into the void, but luckily I made it to my position just in time. Herobrine landed right in front of me, and when he got out of the water, I knocked him into the void with a single swing of my sword. I finally completed my last goal and survived 500 days in Mega Ultra Hardcore Minecraft. The texture packs I use for this series will be available to all my patrons, so make sure to check that out. Link to my Patreon is in the description. Thanks so much to Luke TheNotable for inspiring the 100 days trend, to you for watching, and to my patrons for all your continued support. Also, remember to follow me on Twitch because I stream every week, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram because I'm active on those as well. All the links are in the description, and thank you so much for watching.